Howdy folks, Sapper here, aka Sean, and we're bringing you World in Flames Victory in the West scenario. We are now in the July-August 1940 turn. And so I've conducted all the reinforcements and I've rolled for weather and all that stuff. So weather is fair again, which is good. You'd expect that in the summertime anyway. Initiative went to the Germans. And basically how that works is you have your initiative chart right here. Each side rolls a 10-sided die. High roll wins. And the marker was right there, so the Axis got to add +2 to the die roll. Well, the first die roll didn't go in their favor. So as long as you are on this side of the line right here, the Axis may ask for a reroll. So the Axis asks for a reroll. When you ask for a reroll, then you move it down on the track. So now they only get a +1 on their initiative roll during the next turn. So the Axis asked for the reroll and they won it this time, so Axis gets to go first. In this game, initiative is kind of important. You kind of want to go first, at least if you're Germany, if you're one of the big powers, the major powers, you definitely, if you've got a lot of big plans, you want to go first so you can get your plans done first. So again, weather's fair. The Germans have the initiative, and then I just finished up moving, and then so I have a couple admin notes too. So I got a comment from Moffett Field, and he basically answered one of the concerns that I had in a very early part of the game. Is I think it's here. No, where are you? The Moroccan infantry and the Senegal infantry. I wasn't sure where to put them. I wasn't, I was kind of unclear as to whether they go in their home country or the country that it says on the counter. So the Moroccan goes obviously in Morocco, Senegal goes in Senegal. And it does say it on the setup chart, but because I had never used the setup chart before, to me it was unclear. But once Moffett Field said, hey, they go in France, then I looked at the chart again, and then it kind of made sense. And I looked at other scenarios and how they set up, and it made sense then. So, but the Moroccans, I ended up getting to France anyway. I just used a boat. So Senegal, I kind of started here. And then a couple of other things, another admin note. It says that if the Netherlands or Belgium are conquered, they are incompletely conquered. And when a country is incompletely conquered, then whatever units they have left are not removed from the game. And I don't remember. Yeah, when the Netherlands, it says in the setup rules, when the Netherlands or Belgium home country is conquered, that country is only incompletely conquered and must choose the UK as its new home country. So, if a country is incompletely conquered, you don't remove all their units from the game. I don't remember what units had survived from the conquest once Germany met the requirements for conquest, which I believe in Netherlands is, I think it's just having Amsterdam and Rotterdam, I believe. Yeah, I think if you have units in both of those cities, or one of the cities, I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and look. But, so, I don't remember what surviving units they had left. So I just drew 2 random units for each country. So here's the Belgian units, and then I think, yeah, the Netherlands had an infantry unit, and then you can't see it, but they had I put one of their naval convoys. So I kind of got unlucky with that. So I just kind of randomly drew units, 2 units, and then I just kind of placed them. And so we'll go from there, just to try to fix a little bit of a screw up. Also, I think Moffat also had a question about, do the impulses ever repeat for a power, or does it always alternate? So the impulses, they do alternate, but let's say it's the Allies impulse. They can always, rather than choose an action, so you have different actions. You have different actions that you can choose. You can choose a naval action, an air action, a land action, or a combined action. But what they don't show on the table, which you don't really need to show, is a pass action, which basically means I'm not going to take my turn. I'm just going to pass it. So if the Axis goes, they do whatever they do. They do all the things. They take a land action and they do all the things that they want to do on their turn. Then it goes to the Allies. If the Allies pass their impulse, then it goes back to the Axis turn again. And if the Axis wants to go, then they get to go. So technically the impulses don't repeat, but they could repeat if the side whose impulse it is, they decide to pass. So to answer that question, yes and no, the impulses can repeat. So, all right, so done with the admin and the questions, or the question. So I just did, the Germans took the land movement part of their impulse. So basically just moved a lot more units up into Belgium here. And I think we're going to do a major offensive right there. It's not, a major offensive is not something that's in the book, but we're basically going to attack this stack, and we'll probably use all 4 of those to do a combine, because we got to take that headquarters out, which again, probably just my inexperience with the game. I probably wouldn't have left a headquarters vulnerable like that. Like Germany has a bunch of headquarters. I think they have 4 or 5 different headquarters. So it's not as big a deal if they lose one, but it's still a big deal. But Britain, or the United Kingdom, they only have that one headquarters, and that's it. So you can see France has 3. You can see 1 right here, but then I have a lot of headquarters I have the aircraft on top. So there's a headquarters there. And then somewhere, yeah, there's 1 there. So Germany has several, but I just have the airplanes on top. So, but I think, yeah, again, so I think Germany on their turn, they're definitely going to attack that hex right there. Definitely. And then we'll see what happens from there. But anyway, so that's it for now. I'll get back with you once the Germans' impulse is over. All right, so I'm getting ready to do I'm going to attack that hex right there. It's got that UK headquarters in it. And I'm going to use that hex, that hex, that hex, and that hex. So basically I'm using the 4 hexes that have German units in it. I've tallied up all the attack factors. The UK has 10. The Germans have 51. So basically it's going to be a 5-to-1 odds. Now I could throw some British aircraft in there to bump it down. I could get it down to 4-to-1 odds. That's with the understanding that the bomber support is successful. The British have, I think, so we have these 2 bombers here. So the tactical factor is the number in the bottom left corner. So that's a 2 in the case of this bomber. So basically that would be 12 to 51, which would get me to a 4-to-1. 4-to-1 odds. The British only have the 2 bombers. France has a bomber. For every bomber after the first, I think the attack factors really dwindle down. But so we can see here, if we look on the chart, well, you got my arrow right there. So 5-to-1 gives me a +10 die roll modifier. A 4-to-1 gives me a +8. So you roll 2 10-sided dice, and then here's your chart right here of your possible results. So most common number rolled on two 10-sided dice would be an 11. So 11 plus 8 would be 19. So then we'd go down to 19, and then we're looking at, it looks like one defender loss. Here it's one defender loss, and then, or excuse me, one attacker loss, and then two defender losses. And then over here it's going to be one attacker loss, and then that is a breakthrough, which, let's see right here. Then you can, oops, you can look right here. B is an S result plus breakthrough. So you're going to get the S result, which is destroy land units that cannot retreat. Place remaining defending land units on the production circle to arrive as reinforcements next turn. So, and then B is an S result plus breakthrough. Why don't they have breakthrough explained on there? So it's crazy. But anyway, I'll go ahead and roll. And we'll do the 5-1. I can't see, as the British, you only have two bombers. And then if we look over here, we have, how many fighters do we have that could possibly get to that hex? So we have 1, 2, I don't think you can get there. 1, 2, that one can get there. So there's 3 fighters. There's 3 fighters that could get there. So the chances of the British losing a bomber out of this are pretty high. I think that their best use, at least in this case, would not be to support an attack, but would be to do some strategic bombardment, some of the Germans' production. So honestly, I don't think I'm going to throw any air support on either side in there. I think the Germans, with their 5-1 odds, is a pretty good odds ratio. So we'll get that plus 10 die roll modifier. We'll use the assault column. So you can see you have 2 different columns. You have an assault column and you have a blitz column. Blitz column is usually, there's going to be more retreats in the blitz column. So yeah, what do you want? Do you want I'm not familiar enough with both of those columns yet to know, hey, always do assault on this thing or always do a blitz on this thing. The blitz, you know what? Maybe I should use a blitz, because blitzes can only be used in fine weather. So, and then you could also get +1 per armor, mech, and or headquarters army unit attacking that hex. So that hex that General Gort is in, or that corps, is a non-city clear or desert hex, not across a fort hex side. So we'll use the blitz column. So we're going to get how many more? So what do we get? We get armor. So armor and mech units. What do we have? It's like a lot of just plain leg infantry. There's 1 armor unit. There's a mech unit and an armor unit. So +3. So now we're at +13 to the die roll. So the worst that we can get is 2 + 13 is going to be a 15. So the worst that we could possibly get right now is the X and the 1. So the X means nothing happens. The attacker would take 1 extra loss if any of these conditions are met, and none of these conditions can be met. So the worst possible outcome would be the Allies lose a unit and the Germans don't lose anything. So that is 14 + 13. I don't think the chart doesn't even go that high. 23 is the max. So we're going to get that result. So what's the star? I don't even see a star on. Oh, here we go. Remaining attacking land units stay face up. So I don't have to flip any of those units for that attack. So that's probably about the best result we can get. The defender loses 2 and there's a breakthrough. So basically, both of those units are going to be destroyed. That hex will be empty. I'll be able to move. I'll be able to advance after combat. So that's kind of that was a simple combat because I didn't throw any planes or anything like that. I didn't have any naval bombardment. Well, I can't do naval bombardment anyway because it has to be a coastal hex, and that's not a coastal hex. So that was a really good result. That's really, really going to hurt the British because of that headquarters. But again, that's, due to my inexperience with the game. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up all the other attacks and I'll get back with you. All right, folks, so this will be the final. I did basically 2 big attacks with the Germans because with the yellow cubes, I used all 4 of those to eliminate that UK headquarters, and it was a UK, I think it was mechanized infantry. Yeah, or not mechanized, motorized infantry. So the results were favorable, so I don't flip them over, but I can't use them again in this same impulse, even though they're still face-up units. So I just put those cubes on there to let me know that, hey, I've used those 4. So basically, all along the line, I wasn't going to do anything on the Maginot Line, but I kind of want to break through. I want to get to here so that I can start trying to isolate these guys. So I only have these 2 stacks here. So we've got 2 infantry units. We've got the 2 mechanized units there. And then I've got this stack, but they're attacking across the river, so their attack values are halved. So the plane doesn't count. So I've got a headquarters and I've got a motorized. So that's 10 factors, which is halved to 5. And then the 8 and the 7 is 15. So I had 20 attack factors to 11. So it was 20 to 11, which is basically 1-to-1 odds, or 1.5 to 1. So I decided to, if you look down here on the corner of the video, I decided to commit these tactical bombers, or it's a ground support mission. So you use the tactical factor, which is the number in the corner. So 2 plus 3 plus 5. So that's another 10 factors. I committed this guy as an escort, and then I don't remember exactly where he came from, but I also committed him as an escort. The French committed a fighter. Did a little bit of air-to-air combat. So this fighter here was actually destroyed. The French fighter was aborted, so all the bombers made it through then, because we weren't able to take out the one French fighter. Was the only one that was in range of this hex right here. So all the German bombers made it through, so they added their plus 10 factors. So it went from 21 to 31. So that gives me oh, you know what? I think I did that wrong. I think I had it calculated as 3-to-1. It was basically a 2-to-1. So let's relook at this. So it was a 2-to-1 odds. Is there a 2.5 to 1? No, there's not a 2.5 to 1. So 2-to-1 is plus 4, and then I'm using the blitz column, and I had 2 mechanized units, so that's an additional plus 2. So I had a plus 6 to the die roll. I rolled an 18, so that would have been a 24. So the result doesn't change, even though I had figured out the column wrong. So I was at 3-to-1 odds instead of 2-to-1 odds. So I should have been at 2-to-1. So here's my result. So basically, these 2 stacks, they remain. I don't have to flip them over. And then there was 2 losses plus a breakthrough, which the breakthrough and shatter is the same thing. I don't know why they have, at least my interpretation of the rules, breakthroughs and shatters are like the same thing. But basically we destroyed these 2 units, so those 2 guys are gone. And then I wanted to get across that river. That was the main thing. I didn't want to attack the fortification because that third your attack factors. A river only halves your attack factors. So let's see here. I'll go ahead and advance. And I can advance that fighter because a headquarters can have... Normally aircraft need to be based in cities or ports. Or what's the stacking limits? Aircraft stacking is a major port or city, minor port, any other hex, or a headquarters in the hex. So even in clear, I guess I can have... Yeah, and any hex I can have, as long as it's not mountain, desert, desert mountain or swamp. So in clear, I can have one aircraft, or I can have, if I have a headquarters, I can have two. So I'm assuming, you know what? I'm just going to leave that guy there. I can always rebase him. So I'm going to advance these guys. And then I'm not going to do any other attacks. So I'm not going to put cubes on here to let me know that I've used them, because I'm basically done. Now I'm going to do my aircraft rebasing, and then I'll do reorg. I don't have to do reorg because reorg is basically trying to, I'll utilize headquarters to flip used units over, but all my results were so good that I didn't have to flip any units. So that's really good for the Germans. Actually, you know what? The only thing I will have to flip, I'll have to flip any aircraft that I used. So these aircraft have been used, so I'll flip them upside down, and then that way, it's kind of looks like that on the back. So they'll be flipped upside down, which means I can't use them anymore. So I do have to do the aircraft. But other than that, that is it for the German impulse. Again, I'll just do a little bit of tidying up, and then I'll go into the Allied impulse. All right, I just conducted the Allied impulse, which is impulse number 2 for July and August of 1940. And I did a combined action, which I really didn't want to do, but I had one unit here in London. I think it was, where were you? Where is he? I think it was that guy right there. He was in London, so I used naval move to get him over to Le Havre, and then the ground movement I used to get him over there. So it was a 7-3 unit. It's a pretty good attack factor. So that's the only reason I really needed to do a naval movement, was to get that unit from England into France, which basically limited my attacks this turn. England got one attack, and then France got one attack. Of course, England's not in any position to attack. They do control Belgium, and they do control the Netherlands, but they're not in any position to attack. So basically, France got one attack. It's not like there's a lot of choices for them. I mean, as far as attack factors, they're almost at a disadvantage. The best that we could do is 2-to-1 on, I think, most of them. We decided to attack right here, the French, so they use this stack and this stack. And actually, I have to flip them over. But it ended up being 2-to-1 odds. Die roll, each side loses a unit, so the Germans lost. It was a 6-3 infantry, and the French had a garrison unit, which was a 5-1. So that was the results of that, just a loss on each side. So I can flip these guys now. So during my reorg phase, I'll probably use that headquarters to flip those guys back over. I'm reluctant to use that headquarters because it's on the line, which means it's on the line. Because it is a 6 attack factor unit, and he's with a 3. So I'm reluctant to use him. I'm going to try to pull them back, but man, decisions are starting to get tough now for the French. This right here concerns me. I'm pretty sure that these guys are all still in supply, because we can get supply up through here through the zones of controls, because I have units in here. But if the Germans manage to push further into here, some of these guys could be isolated, and then basically the Maginot Line is going to crumble. I mean, you can see they only have movements of 1, so even if I move them, it'll be very hard to get them off this line. So yeah, this is kind of concerning me right here, because once we've crossed the river right here, it's really going to start opening up to a push onto Paris. So yeah, it's now I'm starting to feel it as the Allies side, or especially with this spot right here. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. The Germans did lose, and during the Allied impulse, the Germans, I think, lost 3 aircraft. They were fighters. They weren't the greatest fighters, but I think the Allies did some ground support with bombers, and the Germans tried to intercept, and they didn't turn out too well for them. But it wasn't really the good German fighters, so it's not a huge loss, still a loss, but the Germans did feel a little bit. So they lost the infantry unit, the infantry corps, and then I think 3 planes. They were all fighters. So anyway, that's kind of the state right now. So we'll catch you on the next impulse.